We have the honor of having the state director of the State Freedom Caucus Network, Mrs. Mallory Staples, on with us today. You're definitely going to enjoy this.
Gets a little spicy. And welcome back to Conservatives Talk. My name's Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And as always, we do like to remind our subjects that they are hitting the like button and the share button on any of the content they run across any of our platforms, as well as making sure you are subscribing, as we have mandated multiple times in the past and is now required by law in Jamie and I's world.
Those are like 4 trigger words at one time.
A little bit of that, but it will allow you to get your directions and your guidance and your orders from your overlords. We also demand that you go to our website at conservativestalk.org and hit that sponsor tab there. It says sponsor, but it's really enslavement. It really will help Jamie and I to organize and run the universe as we have dreamed that we always will.
Team Jamie is divergent.
So, Jamie, with that in mind, would you like to give your first reminder?
Boycott hometown headlines. It's time to finish the drill and get liberal news out of Northwest Georgia, and it starts with you boycotting hometown headlines.
Yes, it is a waste of, we'll call it information and data.
A waste of everything. It's a waste of data on your phone. It's a waste of ink for the Rome News Tribune. It's a waste of a lot of things.
A little bit of that. We also want to say a quick thank you to our affiliates, and our first one being Net News Network. So make sure you're looking for Net News Network on netnewsnetwork.net. It is a grassroots compilation of local on-the-ground news producers where you can get any source of information from people who have a very first-hand perspective of things that are going on in their areas. We also want to say a quick thank you to Veterans for America First, the premier America First policy organization, and they really push their platform through their media arm, and that being Vet Voice. So make sure you are also looking for Vet Voice on every social media platform. So, Jamie, how about let's jump right into it?
All right. And Mallory Staples. Mallory, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We consider it a real pleasure. Jamie and I both know exactly who you are. We've known what you do, and we have a good sense of who you are. But just for those who are from underneath a rock, can you give us a little bit about your background, your information?
Absolutely. I stepped into politics after 2020, made a run for the congressional seat here in Georgia 6, did not win that. Prior to that, and still, I am a mom. The best thing about me for sure, I have 3 kiddos, and it's my love for my children and my concern for my children that really prompted me to run for Congress. I had homeschooled my children. I've been a small business owner, a teacher, and had been in Christian women's ministry for years. We launched into widows ministry with Gary Sinise, serving our military, police, firefighters, first responders, really living a great life. And then just really kind of felt a shift inside that if I wanted to be confident that this country was safe for my children to remain free, I was going to need to get involved and do something. So I did not win that seat. I lost in the primary and received a call a few days later from a gentleman who had been in the Georgia Freedom Caucus and was moving on to do something else. And he said, "Hey, I think there's a place for you here in politics." And I thought, oh gosh, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but I lost. So, I'm not in politics. And he was like, no, we get it. We know, but you're so grassroots and we love how you ran and, just that real citizen, non-politician. And so we'd like for you to take this position. And prayed about it and just couldn't have said yes more confidently. So I'm the director here in Georgia for the State Freedom Caucus Network. And it's a younger organization, but growing really fast. Basically, the success of the House Freedom Caucus birthed the idea of, hey, we need to replicate this on the state level. we don't just have one big swamp in DC. We have 50 all over the country. And let's see if we can't bring in some support for, the true conservatives on the state level. And it was Georgia. And then from there, 11 more. We're looking to grow into, I think we're on a trajectory to be in some almost 25 in another year, which is great. The people are engaged. They love the House Freedom Caucus. They love the idea of having a Freedom Caucus in Georgia. And so that's where I am now. So I'm here to support the brave members of the Georgia Freedom Caucus.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, you had a very well hard fought campaign. It was one of my favorite grassroots campaigns to see. I've been involved in politics since I was 16 years old, passing out signs. Wow. And so throughout that entire time, you ran a very hard, tough fought campaign. And I had to say that.
Thank you for saying that. It was fun. And like you guys were saying about technology, launching this podcast, Baptism by Fire, that was really my experience. And I learned a lot very quickly and met a lot of great people. The people are always the best part. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. In this business, it's the people that make the magic. So
I'm going to take a quick stab at the person who reached out to you. Was that by any chance Phil Singleton?
It was.
Love the man. I actually went out. So a little bit about me with that one. I have never actually been involved with door knocking campaigns or anything along that line outside of directly with a candidate. But I actually volunteered to go down to Coweta County and door knock for that man.
He's amazing.
I'm
telling you, when you say Philip Singleton in the grassroots community all across the state, they know who he is. He's just fearless, and he's warm, and he's funny, and he's great. I felt like I had gargantuan shoes to fill. It was pretty intimidating. But he's been one of my biggest cheerleaders the whole way through this. And, it's important when you're doing something new to have somebody casting vision for you and saying, you can do this. No, I know you can do this. And, I kept saying to Philip, I'm a mom, right? Like, I'm a mom. I'm just like a normal person on the street, right? And he was like, yep, I know. So he's a champion of the people for sure.
Well, in all honesty, it is the normal person that's on the street that's actually turned out to be the most effective person when it comes to political change in today's world. We see time and time again that it is the actual people and who have had enough to where they finally get fed up and say, if I am not willing to take the next step and get involved with this, then there really is no reason for me to complain, gripe,
that's right,
moan, any of that.
Well, and we have this, you see it.
I'm referring to the Queen as well.
Yeah, so. I know. And you see it every few cycles, because take it with the Queen or everyone else. It's the people who have their ear to the street, right? Who are in there with the people who have shown true leadership, who rise up, who fight hard fought campaigns.
Yes.
That's right. They're in touch with the people.
Yep.
And, and I think that's part of the reason I was excited to come on today and talk to you guys about what we're going to talk about, because in my role, 9 months out of the year, I travel the state and I speak on behalf of the caucus and I meet the people. And there is such a chasm between, it's exactly what you just said, the people's voice and what they want, and then what happens under the dome. There's just this tangible disconnect in this space. And it's so exciting to hear people finding their voice, being willing to engage and get in there. And God bless the ones that actually run for office. It's such a heavy lift. On the campaign trail, we would always say to each other, and we had a really busy race, there were a lot of us, but we would always give props to each other because it's tough on everybody involved, the family. It really is a sacrifice to even run. And so God bless the citizens on the street that step in, that aren't, accustomed and funded, and, they don't really know how it works, which was high meat, and you do learn fast, but that's what makes America great.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a very sink or swim moment.
Yes.
All right. So let's jump right into it. And the reason why you're on our program today is we wanted to give an opportunity to someone who disagreed with our last show, because the one thing that Jamie and I have actually prided ourselves on, and it's actually part of our logo and the way that we initiated that, is, if you can tell, we've got every single symbol or the logo of the Republican Party since its inception. Essentially, or at least our characterizations of it. We have the first official logo, then the one that's currently now, and then we have what we'll call the MAGA logo with it as well, all under the single roof, all under the single banner. And that's the reason why we named the show Conservatives Talk, because we all come together and we're all talking this issue out. And that's the reason why we wanted to give you the opportunity to come on and to give your insight into essentially what happened during the last convention in reference to the 14th Congressional District, with the resolution that came out that reprimanded our state legislators for voting in favor of HB 520. Now, again, Jamie and I have taken the position that this piece of resolution here was not only inappropriate to be done, that it was harmful to the party in general, because it does we feel that it drives a wedge between the legislators and the party and the people that are within the party, and the party being there to promote the legislators, to increase voter turnout, and when appropriate, hold our legislators accountable. We just feel like this right here was not an instance in which it should have been done. Not that we are arguing in favor of or against this particular bill. It's that what is in this actual legislation, the resolution itself. Exactly. The last show, the words kept flipping back and forth.
That's why I got you.
Exactly. but the points that are in this resolution.
Love that laugh.
Yeah. The points that are in this resolution are, in our opinion, not only not in this piece of legislation, we feel that they are inflammatory, that they're hollow rhetoric, and in some points are misinformation just flat out. So my question to you is, given, I guess, the diatribe that I just went on with that, what is your perspective with this?
Yeah. So two things that, and thank you for letting me come on here as like the other side of the, coin in this discussion. I think what we're doing right here is how we get better. It's iron sharpening iron. And that's what I think happened at the convention. And I love it. There's been resolution. Again, I travel the state, I've been in 4 counties in 5 days. Like, I just talk to the people all the time. Resolutions came up at the conventions all over the state. And that's kind of a new thing, because we've really seen a resurgence in the past couple of years of grassroots folks who don't know basically the common held propriety of, GOP function. They're like, oh, we can write a resolution. Let's do it. And so, you get that like new eyes on an old system kind of thing. And we saw that all over the city. So I didn't think it was a big deal. To me, 2 things that I will always champion is going to be citizen engagement of any kind, certainly citizen oversight and accountability. I just believe whether it's Weight Watchers, AA, parenting teams, whatever, accountability wins. I mean, that's why you have elders on church boards. Our founders set our government up that way. We're a little off from that. But anyway, I think accountability is great. And I think actually part of what's driving this move across the state for these newly elected and new to the party membership to draft these resolutions and really kind of bring a voice to it is that overarching and well-deserved distrust of the government at this point. So it's like, hey, we actually haven't been watching y'all ever really, or for decades. Republicans are known, we're independent, leave us alone, let us raise our families, let us do our jobs. We don't, and so we're kind of, there's just like an overall sort of rebirth in the party. And I give the grassroots credit for that. And I absolutely applaud it. So for me, I'm going to give a really wide berth to any citizen engagement if it's not perfect and beautiful, if it's clunky and clumsy, I'm fine with it. They're learning. I mean, a big part of what we do is train citizens. I know there's other organizations that teach, how, we really don't learn in school anymore how the government works, what our proper role is. We don't learn that stuff. So for me, I'm definitely going to err on the side of the citizen. I'm a firm believer in not just accountability, but citizen involvement, but that leaders aren't great because they've won the seat. Leaders are great because they've served the people, and everyone elected under the dome is a public servant. They are a servant. It's the of, by, and for the people. They're just a person. They are of the populace. They are of the people. They are sent by the people, and they are there to give the people's voice volume. So if the people help them out with that and they draw up a resolution, that's great. I mean, for me personally, I would have been fine. And we've vetted it. Our legislative director vetted it. We are up to our eyeballs in 520 as well as previously 1013 on a very granular level. So there was only one point on that resolution that we did not validate. And just because it was new to us, we weren't familiar with Biden's executive orders. And that's something that we've kind of started doing a little due diligence on. That was, news to us and interesting. And we don't put anything past Joe Biden at this point or his administration. So we were like, we better look at that. So our legislative director is diving into that. But so I would take complete issue with the fact that it was misinformation. It's not. I mean, we have a full-time legislative director that all they do is read the laws and policy and existing code. And, so I'm fine with that. But I think the point is higher. There is very little forum for the citizens to directly communicate with their representatives. And to me, a representative should be open to that. That's what you sign on for. I mean, you guys may come up across this all the time, but I know when I was campaigning, I promise you, after every speech I gave, there was a line of people more than willing to give me all kinds of, I'm just a candidate. Like, I'm not even elected. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't taken an oath. I'm just there to try and get in the game. And there was just people standing there to give me their feedback and tell me what they thought about what I said. And I don't think this is right. And actually, you shouldn't use that language. Like, one guy, and it was honestly brilliant. He was like, you said our constitutional rights. And I said, yes, sir. And he was like, they aren't. They're God-given and they're protected by the Constitution. I was like, and thank you very much, which I do believe. But he pointed it out to me because I was just off the mark like a little bit, And so I have a pretty high threshold for correction. And I think if you are in the public eye, certainly if you've been elected to the office and you have constituents in the tens of thousands, you've kind of signed up for that. And so I think that it's appropriate. Like, again, there's not a lot of forums for this type of dialogue. And so to me, that convention was like the perfect opportunity for these representatives to be like, whoa, y'all think all of this? To me, there was an opportunity. They left, two of them, but there were other representatives there that actually within the structure and construct of the meeting, there comes a time at which they can rebut and be like, you're crazy, or I didn't, or hey, I didn't read the bill that way. Or it would have been an appropriate time for these representatives to say, they don't give us time to read the bills, which is they tell us that all the time. They get very little time to read these bills. And they could have said, you know what, this sounds like crazy and I didn't read it that way, but gosh, I'm going to look into this. And how about we do a Zoom roundtable and let me look into this, let all of us look into this. I honestly, if I thought this was true, I probably wouldn't have voted for the bill. But what I thought was that the bill was just helping people. And so I wanted to, you should have heard the speeches in the well. They were very compelling and emotional. And so I voted yes. And I thought the Senate was going to clean it up like they did on 1013 and send it back. And we could have voted again. And but this is their forum to communicate with their voters that sent them there and either say, you know what, with all due respect, I think you might be wrong. And with all due respect, I thought this, or great point. And you know what, it's going to come back the second part of the biennium and we're going to drill down on this, whatever. To me, that was the perfect opportunity. And so, the Bible says, sorry, my eye's doing something weird. But the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. So when you step into that position, you do have a higher level. I think it's perfectly fine if the people who wrote that resolution we're off a little bit. Again, there's only one point that the Freedom Caucus would not even take issue with, but need to learn more about. And have no problem saying that. But even if it was all, like every single one was off, it's within their rights to do that. And, it wasn't a press release. Like, they didn't put the resolution out to CNN or C-SPAN. They wrote it up to address it with their representative at convention, which is what they're supposed to do. So I just think if it had been handled differently, not by the people, by the representatives, I wouldn't even be on your show right now. And I do think a lot of times, like we talked about the grassroots and the surge since 2020, it is a bit of a new day. These legislators are really not used to being held accountable. And I hear that all the time. There's lots of good guys under the dome, and they're just like over HB 520, we networked with tons of our coalition partners, like all over the state of Georgia, great organizations, whether it was like election integrity or medical freedom or 2A, we have lots of partners, pro-life, whatever. So there were representatives coming to us going, can you send us your write-up on 520? Because 350 people called my office today. People are upset, and we want to know what's going on because they're not telling us what you're telling us about the bill, in their defense. But it's on them to figure it out. And again, we want to help them with that, but because it is a really heavy lift, but it's in their job description. It's not in the citizens' job description to be right. I mean, I remember I texted a representative on the day of that they were voting. And I said, please, begging. I was like, please do not vote yes for that bill. And I got this response that was like, have you read it? And I was all, okay. I'm sorry. I was like, have you read it? Because it's your job. I actually don't have to read it, but yes, I have every single word. And it was just like crickets. But I think that kind of paradigm shift in our mentality of the government is to be the footstool of the people. The people sit in the chair. Like we are, the leaders, like we are, like they serve, but that, like our founding fathers saw that, and we're so upside down and backwards that I think when you have a momentum like this, and it is a momentum where people are saying, I don't get paid for this like the representative does, but I'm going to get in here. I'm going to try and read this dang bill. And we all got together and we feel like these things are wrong. And we've read all these things. It was not some flippant response. The resolution was very thoughtful, and we need you to answer for this. And we did call you, and we did email you. And I'm sorry. I mean, there has been national coverage for the mental health care bill in Georgia. And after 1013, every representative under that dome knows exactly what's going on with the mental health initiative. I mean, Speaker Ralston made a 10-year commitment to it. Governor Kemp re-emphasized that. Mental health is everywhere all the time. You can't really say you didn't know people were upset about this, because it's been a tidal wave. Like, it has been I think in the state of Georgia, second to the election fraud, the single greatest catalyst to grassroots involvement has been the mental health legislation 1013 and its 2.0 HB 520. So you can't really say that. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's my super long answer to, I'm going to advocate for the people. When I was on the campaign trail, I would say, what was the problem? Because the answer is always the people, and that's one of my arguments against 520. I'm like, hey, listen, there are mental health issues. We've had a spike. Everyone knows it since COVID. Nobody's talking about the root cause. Nobody. 1030 funded over $1 billion to create a mental health agency under Kevin Tanner. That was like less than 2 years ago. And no reports on that, no anything. They want to come back and put this huge, omnibus bill on top of it. Super far reaching, super expensive. There has not been one conversation. And I testified on the Senate subcommittee floor and the Senate committee floor over this. I said, you guys are Republicans, more than half of you here. Why is nobody talking about the private sector solving this problem? I mean, I'm a Reagan baby, not to date myself. I'm older than both of you. But Ronald Reagan said the 9 scariest words in the entire English language are, I'm for the government and I'm here to help. I was like, why in the world do you think a government agency worker is going to take better care of one of the, communities of the familiar faces than someone from Georgia Works or City of Refuge? Like, are you kidding me? Like, we have great organizations in the private sector that are trying to meet these needs, and you're not even talking about them. You just want to get on the back of the taxpayer and see what more you can get out. And it doesn't work that way for Republicans. I mean, our metrics within the Freedom Caucus, when we look at legislation, are 4 things. Does it expand government? Does it raise taxes? Does it increase regulation? And does it infringe on people's freedoms? God-given. Thank you to the gentleman who came up and corrected me. And that's the proper role of government, is to not do those things. And so, this bill is egregious. I've literally yet to meet one human in the state of Georgia who was in favor of that bill. Not one.
520?
Yeah, 520 or 1013, but some of them were later to the party and or have been more intent on this session. I have yet to find somebody who was not connected with NAMI, which is the huge lobbying group that supported it, and who supported the bill. I mean, literally on the Republican side, not one person yet. Do you know how many Republicans voted for it? So again, it's that gap. It's like that chasm between the people and what their concerns are and what they don't want, which is a government that knows everything about them and they don't know anything about the government. I mean, when our country was founded, we were supposed to know everything about the government and they weren't really supposed to know anything about us. And it's like, again, it's like that paradigm shift. And so I'm just going to advocate for the people. And I really would have loved, and I don't know Representative Cameron or Tarbin, either one. They could both walk up and slap me and I wouldn't even know them. So this is not personal to me at all, but I would have loved to have heard, shock's okay. Like, they obviously didn't read their email, so that's fine. It's like, whoa, this is strong language. They're not used to being reprimanded under any circumstances. And so I'll get the shock. I'll give you that all day long. Just marinate in it for a minute. Even if they'd been like, I know Representative Dempsey and a couple others were there. We're going to need to talk about this for a minute, but come back and have a conversation with the people. Even if you're debating and saying, I just flat out don't agree with you, that's okay. And then get on with the business of the convention. They weren't there to vote on the rest of the business. So it just didn't look good. I just don't think, those are the people, like I said, that sent you there, that voted for you. And it's remarkable to me how often the citizens get snubbed. And I think people are flat out sick of it, which might have accounted for some of the strength in the language. But I'm okay with that. Like I said, I just give them a really wide berth. And saying things that aren't true in someone else's opinion is just not a problem for me. I'm like, take issue on that, say, let's talk it out. Where in the world did you hear that? What section, what line? Because that's how we did it. When we looked at the resolution, our legislative director went to what section, what line in the bill was that in, where it's substantiated. And so with the exception of that Biden thing, we found it in there. And the other one, I really can't wait. I can't weigh in on that point yet because we're doing a little bit deeper dive on that. So forgive me for that. I can't say exactly.
No. Yeah, no problem at all. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So this was very informative and interesting. And there's some points I kind of want to bring up that I thought were really good ones. One is that, we have had a shift over the last couple of years. And I think Donald Trump said it best when he said, this is now a workers' party.
Yes.
And I think that's really big when it comes to, a lot of the dynamics, and then compound that with the fact of they stopped teaching civics years ago in school.
Yeah.
There's a lack of understanding of where we are in the political process, how the political process works, and, how do we get back to a mutual ground between those who are elected and the citizens who vote for them.
Yeah.
Because one thing that have found that's been disheartening over the last couple of years is we've gone down to, less than 2% of the voting population is actually active within their parties, regardless of which party it is.
That's staggering. I didn't know that.
And so yes. What's troubling is when you see elected officials, they're saying, well, we're being reprimanded by the party, or this thing is going on because of the party, but yet the majority of the people are either A, still not getting the message, or B, or not, or still just voting out of sheer willingness to vote. So there's a disconnect in where we're getting our information from and how our information is translated.
And I will say to that point exactly there, I have recently, because I follow a lot of the legislation that goes on under the dome as well, as I know you do. This was not a bill that actually came across my radar until it was brought up at this resolution, simply because of the fact, to me, it's kind of a benign bill. There's nothing that's really in that piece of legislation that's going to be harmful to the state of Georgia. And there are some safeguards that Georgia has in place that would keep a lot of the, we'll call it the federal infiltration that would typically be brought about by states that do not have some of the laws that Georgia does. Now, in regard to this specific resolution, when it in reprimanding these legislators, the reason why I took it so just egregiously is because of the fact that, again, not only is the language inflammatory, but it is mirrored to a lot of the language that some of these political organizations have put out over the course of the legislative session. And quite frankly, it's some of it's the hollow rhetoric, some of it's just the inflammatory stuff, but some of it's just flat out wrong.
It's not relative to the bill. Like if this,
well, to finish with that point there, I am 100% in agreement of governance for the people and by the people. And what I feel like had happened here is that the language within this specific piece of resolution was brought out by some of these organizations that were attempting to influence against this piece of legislation. And I am by no means saying that it was yours or anyone that you work with this, because I know all the guys that you work with, and they're upstanding folks, and I don't think that they would do something like this. But there are groups out there that would use this for fundraising, for list building, for things to where they could help promote their own selves. And a lot of just about all of this language in here reflects a lot of the messaging that was put out by these organizations. When we did our last show, we actually had a gentleman from Hilton Head, South Carolina, reach out to our social media account saying he was the one that was responsible for putting all of this language together. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I'm not about to run down that rabbit hole. So,
but to that point, right? If Georgia's HB 520 was to pass in somewhere like South Carolina, we might be having a slightly different conversation, because they don't have the same protections inside their state against some of the federal regulations and some of the federal issues that we do here in Georgia. We have bills that stop for the whole trans movement thing on kids, everything. We have protections in place that wouldn't allow for this type of stuff to move in and affect here in Georgia. But somewhere like South Carolina, it might make a little bit more sense.
Yes, and with that, we feel like, or at least I can specifically speak for myself, and I'm assuming Jamie would feel this the same way with this, is that we feel like this was kind of an initiative by certain political organizations that are now affiliated with Northwest Georgia to really try and build up more of a presence and to get their name concreted more in this area by putting out this hollow rhetoric and really emphasizing a lot of this. And it damaged the connection between not only those in the party, but those out in just the general public, because the party is there, as I said earlier, to support the legislators and, when appropriate, reprimand them for these things. And
but I will say,
well, hang on,
I'll let you finish. I'm just ready to talk.
I understand. We feel like the language here was used to kind of subvert the convention, to put something against the legislators that could be used by this organization or by these organizations that came up with this rhetoric, and to really advance their own agenda by pushing something that, as we said earlier, people in the public and in general don't really have a good grasp of or consensus of. All right, now, so You notice that we're not all wearing some of the same clothes with this. Well,
I went
Jamie,
and changed again.
Yeah. Jamie's homeless too. That's another inside joke.
I live in my Tesla.
Okay.
Oh, man. But we had some weather related issues, so the conversation that we were having was stopped short. So now we spoke with Miss Mallory, and she agreed to come back on and continue the conversation and finish this show up for y'all, so you could hear what she had to say with this. So going back and really jumping right back into where we were, essentially you were just trying to summarize this with this here. You were saying that the people are the voters are the people who are represented. You would grant them a wide berth in regard to any sort of resolution that could be passed. It wouldn't have to be, I guess, right on the money. It's more in the court of the legislators as far as what they are held accountable for, and how the voters and how the people that these legislators represent, how they hold their legislators accountable. Am I kind of summarizing that one?
Yeah. Just like doctors are held to a higher code of conduct than an average citizen, I think, certainly when it comes to legislation and writing, the accuracy or whatever, legislators would definitely be held to a higher standard. But I did say, however, that I felt like, we vetted the resolution and agreed with every point. The only one that we weren't able to agree on, just because it was a new thing to us, new data, and we were going to do further research, were the Biden administration executive orders that were referenced in there. And the point that came out of that was something that we were not familiar with. So, so I said all of those things. And I also said that, that is the proper forum and platform for citizens to express their grievances, with representatives and to respond to their voting records. I think every vote that a legislator takes is subject to that level of scrutiny and should be. I think culture is better for that. The state would be in much better shape if this kind of activity were to happen regularly. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of it. Mm-hmm.
You hit on something yesterday that really kind of made me think a lot more about, maybe we should have more town halls or something of that nature. Because here, it's the battle between the reality of things and what's going on, right? And though the convention is the only format that we have structurally for where people can come out and discuss things with their legislator as a whole, the first version, if this resolution was based on the first version of the bill that came out, this would make sense. But the final version that was going through, is completely different from what this resolution identifies. So if we had more formal communication and more dialogue with our legislators, I think the people would better understand where this bill started and where it finished.
Well, and for that matter, so would the legislators, because the reference to Medicaid expansion is absolutely correct. The other the bill originally did go from 50 something pages down to 38. But there wasn't massive. I mean, one of the largest edits out was the beginning part where they stated existing code, and they decided not to do that. And it had to do with the 1013s and the 2 affidavits, anonymously being able to be acquired and, involuntary holding and all that. But a big chunk of what they took out was just the fact that they restated the existing code, and that was confusing people and causing some, consternation there. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, I would just, I guess when it comes down to it, like I said, the Freedom Caucus, we vetted those points and referenced the lines that they were in, and do not feel like the resolution was incorrect to start with. So we disagree on that point, I guess. But you're absolutely right. The more forums that we have for communication with the legislators and the people, the better. Because, again, having witnessed it, being under the dome every day, for the first time ever in my life. I haven't done that before, and I haven't witnessed all that before. And watching it, when you're down there, the communication is solely internal, unless citizens, send an email, call, or have, the gumption to come down and call their representative to the ropes. There's really no communication. And that's when these bills are being dropped. That's when they're going into committees and being amended and changed. And the citizens are really largely on the sidelines unless they insert themselves, like we did at subcommittee hearings and committee hearings when they allow for, 60-second or 180-second testimony, which is not really a lot. So I couldn't agree with you more. It's a great idea. And I think these legislators, we talked about that chasm between what they think is going on and what's happening in the will of the people. I think that would start to shrink were there to be more forums where this type of dialogue was welcomed, where they weren't offended, by being called out. That's just life, I think they just have to, get used to that. And probably the more it happens, the less shocking it would be. And quite honestly, the better the people would get at doing it, And so I don't think there's a downside to that either. I totally agree.
I got you with that, and I agree wholeheartedly that dialogue is a very essential part of it. A vast majority of the legislators here in this area, or within the 14th district, regularly attend the party function meetings. It's very rarely that you will see one of these legislators not at one of these meetings. That is an excellent opportunity for folks to come in and meet them and speak with them about things that are outside of that when they're not there in the Gold Dome and are not distracted by, all the flashing lights and whistles and bells and, all the little pretty colors that fly around through there. And one of the things that kind of going back to what we had originally been talking about, and forgive me because it didn't click with me yesterday when you were saying this, but I did pick up on it there. Y'all said that y'all had vetted this and agreed with a lot of the stuff that is in this resolution here. There are points, and we'll leave out the part that could pertain to the executive orders, although I have reason that I do not believe that these executive orders would be applied to Georgia, because Georgia has laws that would explicitly prevent any of that stuff from going on, and that would preclude Georgia from even applying for any federal grants in that area. And I have verified that with some of my friends who are in D.C. that work with these federal grants. So for with the expansion of the Medicaid deal, the expansion with Medicaid was to allow anyone under the age of 19, if they are on Medicaid, to then pursue mental health care. We are seeing the highest rate of students who have active plans to commit suicide. And it's almost up to 23 to 24% of all high school students nationwide have had serious thoughts of committing suicide. I really think that this right here could be a stepping stone.
Are you serious?
Yes. It is a stepping stone in allowing for this mental health care area to be explored with that, even though I do believe wholeheartedly that it also has a lot to do with the overprescribing of minors just with these psychotropic drugs and antidepressants and mood suppressants and everything along that line. I wholeheartedly believe that's at the root of the problem. And not to mention what we were talking about earlier, our educational system in general, where they're really pushing you're a terrible person based on your skin color to begin with. The other part where it's talking about how it does the student loan forgiveness for healthcare providers, that right there is actually something that I took along the same principle that I am taking advantage of with my post 9/11 Montgomery GI Bill. Is the same principle where you give a term of service, and after that term of service, your student debts are repaid. Your student loans are repaid
if they're federal only.
Yes, if the federal, well, I mean, still, yes, but it's a recruiting principle. It's to bring in the best of the best. It's something to get out there and to grab people who are in that industry and bring them into the state. And then it's talking about the 90 days of detainment there. I believe that was actually removed during the first edits where you were talking about, where it went from that 55 pages down to, I believe it was 41 pages. So it's that part was actually removed.
That's actually existing code. This bill legally
yes,
remove it. So it is still there. It's on the books. So
I'll have to go back and look at that, because part of that code that was enforced or that was altered with that was that a judicial order could be put out based upon 2 affidavits or a medical health care provider's testimony. Then it explicitly says in the code now that that order is rescinded or canceled after 7 days, after that person has been detained. So I'll have to go back and look further into this 90 days, but in that bill as it is right now, or in that piece of legislation 520, it doesn't talk anywhere that I'm able to find about 90 days.
It was the anonymity. So the 90 days, that's already on the code, which is why we interviewed tons of sheriffs from different counties to find out in real time, what this 1013 looks like. And that is literally what they call that detainment process, is a 1013. And so that is an existing code. 520 moved to make it anonymous. The affidavit's anonymous, which they currently aren't, which of course denies someone the right to face their accuser. So that's the issue there. And on the, I want to make the distinction with the GI Bill you're talking about. You're talking about for military service.
Yes.
That is a different issue. This is and we wrote up some things that in an effort to have 520 altered, if it wasn't going to be completely defeated, what were things that we would want out of it? You're talking about laying out that taxpayers are specifically on the hook for these individuals, mental health individuals, medication, shelter, peer support, drug treatment, job skill training, mental health treatment, employing, housing. This is so far reaching. And just as Republicans, if we're going to do this as Republicans, we need to change the definition of the platform of the party. But we do not, by the platform that we stand on, feel like it is right to make one taxpayer pay for these services for another taxpayer. That's just something that, when Biden talks about student loan forgiveness, and it was so far reaching. It was literally anybody who basically taken a class having to do with mental health, their loans were forgiven. They did not serve in the military. These are just people that were in school, and not only forgiving their loans, but paying for all those things I just listed out. And keep in mind, it is for a group of people that has not been clearly defined as to who those people even are. That was in the bill. It was going to be defined what is serious mental illness by December or the end of this year. So, and here's my high level question. This is a problem I have with 520. Todd Jones, Representative Todd Jones, and Representative Mary Margaret Oliver, one a Democrat, one a Republican, as you both well know, but for your listeners' benefit, carried this bill. Todd Jones is a Republican. And so, on Medicaid expansion and loan forgiveness, you could just stop there. This is not a Republican platform bill. But moving forward, he said in his own words, this bill, massive expansion of Medicaid, which the state covers 30% of Medicaid costs of that federal program. So taxpayers are going to get hit on their federal taxes and their state taxes on this bill. This bill would fund all of these things to address less than 1% of the population of the state of Georgia. So you are talking about drawing down on the entire tax-paying base to address services for this group of people right here. And to your point on the pharmaceutical company overprescribing these black box drugs, that goes back to my original point. The first thing I said when I came on yesterday, no one is talking about the root cause of the problems we're seeing.
Yeah.
Nobody. So what doctor would prescribe a prescription for somebody when they have not diagnosed what the person has? And that is essentially what this bill is doing. One radio host who introduced me said, it's like building this giant leviathan of a government program. And never mind culturally, the distrust for the government that we rightfully have right now, especially under this administration. You're talking about giving access and authority and massive amounts of funding to the government to address a problem that they created and they haven't even diagnosed it yet. This to me is absolute government insanity. And you're doing it all on the backs of the taxpayers, whipping, keep going. You keep working because you're going to pay for all of these things I just mentioned for all these other people. That to me, it's not just not Republican, it's un-American. It is un-American to do that. And when the Democrats and Biden and all his people come out and talk about these things, these same folks that voted for this literally froth at the mouth and call them communists and Marxists and socialists and lose their ever-loving minds. And yet here we are saying, oh, but this is great. And mind you, we're doing it again. 1013 was passed in the previous session with over $1 billion price tag. What came of that? What is going on? We still don't, the taxpayers gave them $1 billion and we still don't have a definition for serious mental health. They need another $80 million. I mean, this kind of stuff, it almost makes me angry. It's like, let me ask every Republican in the House, Todd Jones and every single other person, the Democrats can listen if they want, with everything that is going on right now that is wrong in government, with the mistreatment of the citizens, we pay higher taxes than ever before, and get less from the government. With everything else that's going on, with the concerns of the citizens, this is the best they can do. This bill is the best they can do. This is what they're going to champion. This is what they're bringing to the people. If they really cared about people's mental health, they would not be in bed with Big Pharma. If they really cared about mental health, they would not be teaching our children in schools that they are defined by the color of their skin as one or the other, a victim or an oppressor. They would not be teaching our children that they're not boys or girls, that they were a mistake. The way they were born was a mistake. They wouldn't put death tickers on the television and traumatize the whole planet, let's be honest, scared to breathe. And then they wouldn't also be teaching our kids in school, if they really cared about mental health, that the world is going to come to an end in 6 years because of climate change issues. I mean, if you were a child growing up today and then prescribing medicine left and right that has not fully been vetted, by the way, 1 in every 4 people, children under 18 in this country that is on a pharmaceutical drug is abusing it. That's 25% of the young people. And I mean, I could go on for days about the pharma lobby. Yeah, it's terrible. You read an article or you watch a commercial or there's a grant or funding, if you follow the money, it goes back to Big Pharma. So when I look at my Republicans, I say, not good enough. This is what you've got. We couldn't pass school choice. We could not pass a school choice bill in the Georgia General Assembly, but you guys got behind this. You've got to be kidding. I mean, honestly, the citizens should be outraged. All the citizens are dealing with inflation. They are pulling their kids out of public school. They are being silenced and censored on every platform for being a conservative. And the Republicans bring a $80-something million bill on the heels of a $1 billion bill to address less than 1% of the population of Georgia. I'm sorry. My vote would be audit, restructure, find out where the money went. And again, by all means, let's free up the private sector to get the job done. Because just like Ronald Reagan said, and I mentioned it yesterday, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, should be terrifying to everybody. And Republicans used to feel that way. So it's almost personally offensive to me, this bill. It really almost is. I look at our legislators and I say, you're going to have to do better. You're going to have to do better. And I want to get back real quick to,
yes, please.
When people address, and I've watched it, I mean, I get emails forwarded to me where just God-fearing patriots had the audacity to email their representative about this bill or another one, or where are you on school trip? The emails they get back from these representatives in large part are so condescending that they're like, can you help me? Like, I mean, it's almost like name calling. And so I am all for these people being humbled, acting like they're a public servant, listening, and admitting the fact that it is utterly and completely pathetic that HB 520 was what the Republicans from the governor's office on down championed this past session. Like it's a problem. It's a problem. And it's honestly why, and you guys know this, why everybody's looking at Georgia and they're watching us turn purple. I mean, these issues that I'm talking to you about, Medicaid, loan forgiveness, that is why people did not vote for Stacey Abrams. Like literally, people would cite those issues as to why they did not vote for Stacey Abrams. And this is what we got. This is what we had to spend 3 months fighting. It is not good enough. It is not good enough. And they need to do better. And so to turn on the people and say, we don't like the way you said this. We don't like the way you typed this. We think you might be off here. I mean, a little bit of me, if I'm honest, is not interested, because I want you guys, it's like that scripture, and I'm gonna just muddle it up here, but it's like, talk about, trying to help your neighbor get the little bit a piece out of their eye when you've got a plank out of your eye. I mean, this is a train wreck. It is a train wreck. And if everybody would step a little bit further out and look in at the Georgia General Assembly from like a national level, or just, I don't know, common sense, it would be like, okay, guys, let's do better. Let's do better. And when I travel around and I talk to people, their main comment is, my representative carries and champions bills that mean absolutely nothing to me and my family and my way of life and what I'm trying to do. I mean, it's that massive, massive disconnect. So that's how I feel about that.
Well, by all means.
No, that's a good perspective, because it's an angle that I hadn't thought about. And one thing I think about too is, right, like, I will say this, one thing I don't agree about with the bill is helping with the providers for their loan forgiveness, because of the fact of, like, when you look at the GI Bill, when you look at the public servants forgiveness, they're working for the government. These are working for private companies. We're forgiving student loans for people who are working for private companies. And I don't see why
Are you in favor of the Georgia First recruitment deals where they're paying for people to come in, or the state's paying for folks to come in and to be trained to work in specific facilities?
I mean, look, here's the thing, right? We keep getting away from this one thing that's leading to nationalizing healthcare, right? This is just a bite at nationalizing healthcare. Because you're forgiving them for working for a private company. Recruitment, on a staffing level, regardless of how it helps subsidize anything like that, I'm all for public-private partnerships. So I think from a staffing standpoint, to help bring in and recruit people, that's a totally different animal. I think it's the same kind of thing that you were referring to with the GI Bill. It's the same thing that the government uses for public service, but doing it from the other standpoint to help a private entity. I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, it's
interesting.
Exactly what.
Just give it to. Why wouldn't you just give it to? I mean, why wouldn't you give it to the company itself? Why wouldn't you give the tax break to the company versus giving the loan forgiveness to the employee?
Because you're not giving an incentive for somebody that graduated in this field with that specific knowledge. And I am, again, I want to start off by saying with this, Jamie and I are not arguing
for anything
for or against this bill, only the specific points and what we believe in and see. We don't see a lot of this in this bill is essentially what we're saying. We're not saying the bill was good or the bill was bad. What our point is with this is a lot of this stuff or the lot that was in this resolution, we do not see in this bill. But to go back to what I was saying earlier with that, I mean, you're really bringing in, it's a recruitment myth. You're bringing in folks that may have graduated from Tulane University in mental health care as a psychiatrist. Well, they've got $100,000 worth of student loan debt. They're looking at where would be a great place for them to go and set up a practice. They're the top in their class. They realize Georgia, if I move there and I work in this sector over 5, I can't remember if it was 5 or if it was the exact term of their what they would be working and living here in the state was, but it wasn't enumerated in there. Over that period of time, it would help. It would pay off a specific amount of their loan as long as they maintain the criteria that was laid out in the bill. It's a recruitment deal. It's to bring in the best and the brightest.
I understand your perspective, but part of what I'm saying is at what point we can point to, and I'm not arguing that healthcare is not a public service because it is, but at what point do we not say that certain things aren't public service? Construction is a public service. Are we going to forgive people who work for private construction companies if they come in to continue to build?
You're saying, Jamie, it's a slippery slope. Once you do it for the one, why aren't you doing it for 2, 3, 4, and 5? And here's the thing. Again, where's the ingenuity? Where is the creativity, the problem solving on this issue? Why is somebody not talking about other solutions to these problems that do not have to do with expanding the government and taxing the citizens? Why is somebody not talking about the portability of licenses? Why aren't they for the nurses, for the workforce issues? Why is that not even being discussed? Why haven't they talked about signing bonuses? Create signing bonuses. I don't know. How about accelerated apprenticeships for those people that want to come in, get to that higher level of salary? How about an accelerated apprenticeship program? I've just listed 3 things off the top of my head that companies can do before they knock on the door of the government. And we all know the government has no money. They produce no money. They produce nothing. Comes from the citizens. Why aren't we having those conversations? So we've got rooms full of Republicans that are just like, we gave you $1 billion and some change. Oh, you're coming back? Of course they're coming back. Of course they're coming back. Oh, you want 80 more million now? Okay, great. And you've got the citizens, the people, trying to put food on the table for their families, working their tails off, all the other issues I just laid out, and they're supposed to fund this. I just say absolutely not. You've got to do better. Be more creative. I mean, I actually got a call from some leaders up in the 14th where this whole thing went down. Now, keep in mind the GOP people, not the representative leaders, called and said, you know what? We want to really dig in here. We don't want to just say, you're right, or we're right, you're wrong, or you're wrong, I'm right. Like, we don't want to do that. They want to sit down and do what I just rattled off, which is we want to look at these components and find, they're basically doing the jobs of the representatives. We want to create a solutions list. We want to use our minds and what we have access to, and we want to help solve the problem. So rather than just say poo-poo on 520, they want to sit down and say, let's talk about portability of licenses. Let's talk about accelerated apprentice programs. Let's talk about signing bonuses. You know, they want to help be the solution. And that's the type of mentality we need in our General Assembly members. And I am here to tell you, it is severely lacking. I am not saying no one down there does that. There's not anyone. I'm not making big sweeping statements. But by the look of the board, when you vote for a bill like this, we're lacking. I mean, we're just lacking. And the people deserve that because they work hard. They work hard for their money. And when you look at what we pay in federal taxes, state taxes, property taxes, sales tax, inheritance tax, these people deserve a break. We deserve a break. And if all they can do is go down there and figure out how to tax us more, to treat less than 1% of the population of Georgia and say, you know what, we're basically going to give the finger to the 99.5 of you. I'll be standing on the desk screaming all day long. I mean, the federal government does not need to grow. Do you know if you took every federal government employee and their subcontractors, wink, wink, I mean, Lord only knows who that is, and you put them all together, that is the largest employer of human beings on planet Earth? Yeah. That's a problem.
I spent almost a decade in the military. Believe me, I'm well aware.
I'm gonna flip the coin again, right? Because I think where we can find, or at least work to find, a happy medium is 40 days is not a long time, and to try to get something done within 40 days that gets close is, in my opinion, can be almost impossible. But what I think we could do, or at least try to do or work towards, is having to where we have groups like the people who had come to you about this sit down and talk about ways that bills can be revised that might have passed that people have heartburn with, and then have a meeting or town halls with the representatives to try to get some kind of revision or new bill in the next session.
To your
just
point,
keeps bringing
Jamie,
up all this deja vu of messages that I've sent to some of these leaders and had these conversations with Jamie about the exact same thing.
Yeah.
They took my idea, is what I'm trying to say. So essentially, I had, after this bill and after I had expressed some heartburn about it, or after this resolution, I had expressed some heartburn about it, and reaching out and speaking with some of these leaders here in the 14th Congressional District. One of the things that I did propose was that, we do see some of these areas that could be addressed with this. Why not the party come up and establish almost kind of a citizenry board and have it as the 14th District Citizenry Board or specific counties citizenry boards, where the party can come in, have a group of folks from the party reach outside the party, get random everyday citizens to where then they can come in and talk with these representatives and kind of give the representatives a feel of where the community sits.
Yes.
Because again, during that 40 days, of those 40 days, they spend just about every one of those days in the state capitol in Atlanta and away from their homes, away from the people. Not all of them do that. A lot of them do commute back and forth a good bit, but the overwhelming majority of them do focus around that area. So by having these kind of community and citizenry groups, well, for lack of a better term, a focus group, you're able to really kind of get the gist of where people in your area and the people that you represent, where they lie and how they feel about these things. Because it is the responsibility. It is the ultimate responsibility of the legislator to represent the people in their area. I will take it a little bit further than that, but the responsibility also lies on the people they are being represented to have a good understanding of what their representatives doing.
Well, and I do want to add this real quick. I think the thing that was the most controversial part about this resolution is, we'll even take into account for some of the things that we heard beforehand. I can probably count 6 of these individuals who did not get anything other than, I don't like the bill. Nothing as another solution or anything else. Didn't have any idea about the resolution. And then just to kind of see it proposed as a reprimanding or a citizen or a censorship is not the way to try to get something, a not good way to try to meet in the middle. I think the key here between the discussions that we've all had about this bill is we need to do a better job as citizens and legislators of coming together and figuring out and thinking of more think tanks and ways that we can have more focus groups between the two, parts of the party on when we have something controversial like this, we're not just screaming and yelling, well, I don't like it because XYZ, and then either A, not following up and seeing what the final version is, or B, not reaching out and seeing, what really is it that's getting at the people about this, and how can I explain to them better that we have either revised this or why this needs to be in there.
So you're saying the responsibility lies on both folks.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
It does. And to greater measure, the legislators, and I have to point out again, these two reps got up and left the room. So if somebody behaved poorly here, it was the representatives. It was not the people that wrote the resolution. It wasn't the people in the room. Nobody was a maniac. So when you're talking temperaments, the people that left the room, they were the problem. If they had stayed, there would have been a conversation. And again, when we're talking about wanting to engage the citizens in a more refined way or whatever, how likely do you think these people are going to be after writing their first resolution and it was met with, I'm leaving. You do not, I will not stay in the room with you. I'm leaving. And so that to me, again, you're a member of the Georgia General Assembly, and we've all had to stand and listen to things we didn't want to hear or whatever. So I would implore them, stay in the room. Don't leave. This is your job. And if you will work with the people, everybody will get better at, their part of whatever they're doing, but I just, I don't want to skate over that because we're putting a ton of emphasis on the citizens and what the citizens can do. And I'm just going to be one to push back and say, the legislators are at a higher level of scrutiny. Think about this dialogue that just the three of us have had, just this one engagement that we've had around this bill, around the broader issues. Mm-hmm. Imagine what could have come out of them staying in the room and having a conversation. And by the way, those events are spirited all across the state. I haven't heard of a convention that was less than 12 hours, and there wasn't all kinds of stuff going on, and we adopted the rules. We shouldn't have, because then we wanted to nominate somebody from it's just a little clunky. It's somebody's first kiss, everybody's trying to figure it out. And so I think temperance and propriety and just an acute awareness of their role and what they're there to do, it would be helpful. It would really be helpful because this exchange of ideas is invaluable. It's just invaluable. And we're only getting started. You know what I mean? The three of us didn't even research possible, solutions to mental health issues before we came on here and chatted it up together. But we're just kind of, we're throwing stuff and we're doing things. And so I just think that there needs to be a more gracious approach from the legislators to the people. And then the citizens, of course, need to be respectful, and which I believe they were. And if not, okay, you tweak that. But across the country, Americans feel distrusting of the government. They feel distrusting of the media. They feel distrusting of platforms like Google and, there's just all the medical community now after COVID.
Their neighbors.
They feel distrusting of the educational system. That's whispering to their kids, do you want a chest binder? Don't tell mommy. Mm-hmm. The climate in the country for Americans, never mind slapping them with a little, hyperinflation. It's intense. So I say, give these people, like I started with, a wide berth. They're stepping forward. What if nobody'd been there? What if nobody cared enough to even write a resolution? It's a good thing for the health of the country. And so it would just be great to see, and I'm not just picking on these two guys. Again, if they spit on me, I wouldn't know who they were, but legislators across the board, even on the federal level, we just need better. The people deserve better.
I understand. I get it. In their defense, though, I just because I was one of the people who left too. And in just their defense, I feel that the room was already hostile. towards legislators. It was not very.
I was there the whole time.
Yeah, I understood why they left, because it didn't feel like the message was unity, but it also didn't feel like there was going to be any real form of discussion.
Well, we'll never know. We'll never know.
We'll never know. The only thing we can do is move forward and try to think of a positive way to turn this into something that we can all come together on. Because,
Absolutely.
Learning experience.
It's a learning experience. Even if we broke it up and had a 2-day convention, you know what I mean? Or if we just looking at me like, that's crazy.
He's like, no.
There's a gun on the wall right there. I will end this before that idea ever spreads anywhere.
You're right. No 2-day convention. But
I was at the
state's going to
be.
be.
We all have to do better.
You want to talk about sweaty? I was at the Fulton GOP and one of the senators was there, and this lady just flat out stood up and was like, "Listen, you with your stance on whatever, I'm not having it." And I mean, he just manned up and was like, "Listen, I get it. A lot of people feel that way. I disagree with you. I mean, I feel this about that." And I mean, and she was tough on him, and he just had to sit there and defend himself. He's entitled to his opinion. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, but it like nobody left, everything went, and it was, I mean, you start sweating a little bit. You're like, oh my God, but it's okay. It worked out. Nobody got hurt. Right.
Well, I will say,
before we do that, I have to ask, was that Stacy?
No.
Okay. I'm surprised.
I will say this.
I love Stacy. Stacy's my favorite.
As intense as things get in the 14th, nothing is wilder than the Fulton County breakfast.
Nothing. I mean, y'all now have a reputation. You're going to have to keep it like high level intensity up in the 14th because we expect it. We want to see fireworks up there. Y'all
it's going to be something like that.
I went to the Fulton County breakfast a couple months ago, and I was like, there was a guy yelling from the floor, and he was like, "You're not going to give me any time to talk."
Yeah. I'm just telling you, it gets spicy, and it's okay. It's okay. But the 14th you guys are probably going to be the district that gets the most done, right? It's that iron sharpening iron. I mean, the rest of the state may be watching you guys and being like, look at what they're achieving up there, because they're just getting after it. And I'm okay with it. I just think it's great. I encourage it. I think there's a level of stability, like I said, in propriety, obviously, that always needs to happen, but use the system and we'll all be better for it. We'll be telling our kids about these stories and laughing, and they'll be more free and it'll be great. Right. So
completely agree. And I love our chairwoman for the district. I call her Mama Burns, even when she's mad at me, like she's mad at me right now because of all this, but she will always be like a second mother to me. And that's just the thing about the 14th. We can infight, we can fight. We'll be mad for a little while, but we will always come back together. And I feel that's the best part about being a Republican in the state of Georgia is we've always disagreed, on certain things, but we do it in the best family style sibling rivalry you'll ever see.
Y'all are going to be known for that up in the 14th. I mean, we're all going to be emulating you guys.
I've actually asked Mama Burns not to use her mother voice at me. When she's getting annoyed with us.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I love her. She's so great, and y'all are just so great that y'all have her. So great that they have you guys. I mean, it's just a refining process, and if everybody's okay with the process, I think, I look for you guys to be leading seriously in the state. I think it's all good. I'm pleased, so pleased.
It's definitely going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. But yeah, well, we told you for the second segment since we came back, we weren't going to hold you that long, and now we're almost at another hour.
Hey, I could do this all day. It's so
I know this
fun.
is great.
We could too.
It's so fun. You guys are great. So easy to talk to, and I just appreciate again you wanting me to come on and giving me the opportunity to come from the other side, whatever. I really do. I appreciate it. Y'all are just a joy.
And I really want to thank you for the dialogue because, again, Justin and I are really stubborn. He's aggressive. I'm passive. And sometimes we don't see the the way that our perspectives are viewed from other people. So thank you for coming on and actually having a dialogue with us about this.
Oh, I enjoyed it. You're so welcome. And again, thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'm sure we will be seeing you here soon. State's coming up, and I know most likely going to have big plans for that down there.
I'll be there.
I really don't know if Columbus is going to be able to.
I'm 0 for 3 in the city of Columbus. And there's a dive bar. There's a real redneck dive bar that I love going to that I've already been told that I can't go to. But if you find me, we're going to Bobby's.
Let's do Bobby's. Let's do it. Give me something to look forward to. I mean, people are like, "Are you going to convention?" I'm like, "Yes, pray for me."
Yes.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. Same.
So, us, Bobby's, we're there. Let's do it.
Love
it.
Got work to do.
Justin.
Yeah, then there's Bobby's. They got a nice little jukebox. We'll play some Morgan Wallen. I'm cut up on the dance floor in my boots. It's gonna be great.
Okay.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
I'm in.
Well, Miss Mallory, it has been an absolute pleasure. And again, thank you for coming on and speaking with us about that and giving us another perspective with this. You have made some points that are worth consideration, and you have been right on nail on the head with a lot of issues. So again, I really want to say thank you for that. And we are looking forward to seeing you here soon.
Yeah. Next time we're on the opposite ends of a bill, we'd like to have you on again too. So.
All right, let's do it. I'm game whenever.
Not opposite ends of a bill, opposite ends of an issue, more or less. Because again, we are not advocating for.
I'm not advocating for
against
anything. Resolution bill. It doesn't matter. This is great.
We just need to keep talking. That's the bottom line. Just need to keep talking. So
we just got to keep
whenever you're
laughing.
game, I'm game. So this has been so fun.
Perfect.
Sounds good, man. Well,
I'll talk to y'all soon.
Yes, ma'am. We'll be seeing you soon. So we want to say thank you again to Mallory for putting up with Jamie and I over the last 2 days. As you saw in there, we had some weather-related issues, so we had to. The interview stopped for one day, and we had to carry on for the next. So again, thank you for really dealing with Jamie and I with a lot of this.
And she brought up an interesting perspective, and I think the best thing about this is that regardless of how on what side of the line of conservatism that you feel that you're on, as long as we continue to have an actual dialect instead of yelling at each other and name calling and getting our personal feelings wrapped up into it, then we can really start to meet each other on a mutual understanding.
Yeah, so I think that's very well put. We really don't have much of a dialogue anymore. It's really rhino, crazy, radical. I mean, it's all name calling. There's really no substance to anything that goes on anymore. And quite frankly, anyone calling you or I a rhino is just, I mean,
well, they don't know me.
Not just that, but I mean, I really don't believe they even know the meaning of the word to begin with. That we may differ on policy issues or on specific points within a piece of resolution or a piece of legislation, but the ultimate thing is we all believe in the core values of what the Republican Party is and what it's there for. We may differ on how we get there, and we may have different views on some of these things, but we all have those same underlying principles.
And someone who is an activist, who is active inside the party, who embodies those values, I have no problem trying to have an open dialogue and conversation with them. I'll cuss out a keyboard warrior anytime, any chance I get, just for the fun of it, and I will troll them to the death of me.
Well, that's the reason. That's the reason why we invited Miss Staples onto the show, because we know that she is a very she is a very devout Republican. She is a great leader. She's a great person. She's a great mother. As far as what we know, I have no reason to doubt anything other than that. But you know, we do differ on some of these points. She did express some interest or some views that were not the same as Jamie and I. But at the end of the day, we were still able to sit down and have this conversation, and we did it without anyone coming forward. And again, due to the video, she would disagree with this. We did it without any sort of retribution or any sort of, us coming out against someone or another. It was all policy. Yeah. It was all discussion. It was all about what's actually going on.
As it should be.
I couldn't agree with you more with that.
And not blindsiding, so we have to blindside back or anything of that nature. It wasn't tactical. It was just open discussion as it should be beforehand.
And those are Jamie's words. But with that in mind, we do like to remind our subjects to make sure they are hitting the like button and the share button on any other platforms that they see any of our productions on, as well as making sure you are hitting that subscribe button as you are ordered to do. That way you can receive your marching orders. You will know how to follow and fall in line and get behind what is actually right, and will make your life better in the end.
Totally time for me to go back in the box.
We also demand that you go to our website at conservativestalk.org, and we require that you hit that sponsor tab. Again, it says sponsor for tax purposes, but it really is, well, let's go ahead and call it. They are paying homage. They are coming.
Homage? They're paying homage?
They are coming.
Who the hell are you right now?
They are laying their gold at our feet, as they should. And but in all sincerity, this does help us fund the show and continue to have these conversations, really be able to produce and put a lot of this out as we do. And it really helps to get more opinions and more perspectives and views out as possible. With that in mind, we do also want to say a quick thank you to our affiliates and our first and being Net News Network. So make sure you are looking for Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net, as well as our other affiliate being Veterans for America First, and you can find them at vfaf.org. You can also find all of their America First policy producers and content producers through their media arm at Vet Voice. So make sure you are looking for Vet Voice on every major social media platform. And Jamie, with that, final thoughts.
I'm still kind of shocked that he said the word hominage, but anyway,
I want to throw him off a little bit.
Deep breaths. Final thought is we are now coming close to the end of the convention cycle for the Republican Party, and now is more than ever the time. If you haven't been active, you want to see where it really goes down, then we'll see you in Columbus June 9th and 10th. For those who have been notified, you need to be there on the 8th. But this is you're going to see what it really means when we say, though we differ in the Republican Party, we always end up coming back together in some kind of format, because we all break bread together. We all discuss these ideals. We all figure out what we can do to make the party better. And all that goes down in Columbus, June 9th and 10th. Other than that, be sure to get involved with your local party. And again, if you are interested in running for public office anywhere in the country, go on to our website and hit the contact info, and then leave us your information, as well as just leaving the contact. I'm interested in running for whatever you want to run for and what state, city, and county you're in, and we can connect you with the right people.
Talking about the convention cycle, the phrase that comes to mind is how the sausage is made.
That's it. And you want to see how wild I get? I'll see you at Bobby's Bar.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you, look, my people aren't gonna let me go to Bobby's, even as much. I'm gonna have to literally turn my phone off and break away and go to Bobby's. And if you know me, you know
there's no problem with that whatsoever.
Which is an actual thing. I will turn my phone off and I will leave, and then people they'll think I get kidnapped. It's fun though. It's a great way to live my life.
I don't even know. It's Conservatives Talk, and we'll see you.